Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards. Because we are the best. And we're not wizards. No matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for February because it's 2020, which means we're in the future. And in the future is a bright and lovely place where certain wonderful things happen and certain less wonderful things happen. But anyway, the tail end of 2019, several wonderful, fabulous things happened to me. One of them was getting to meet people I'd spoke to on the internet in a face-to-face type basis. That was really, really exciting. So I got to meet Dan Hughes, and I got to see Matthew Jude again, and I also got to meet this particular person for the first time. And I'm
appreciate
pausing.
the pause. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's fine. You're welcome. It's Mike DiLisio, known for many things, but also proudly now a full member, and I use the word member favourably. Mr. Mike DiLisio. They're so nice, named him twice.
Yes. Well, Richard, thank you for my repeat invitation. First things first, I think if people that are listening to this podcast have razor sharp hearing, they might have noticed the tail end of a coughing fit that I had right at the beginning of your introduction. So I think you came in right over the end of a cough, and so that's going to be a good way to start this off.
And
the second thing,
professional.
the second thing is that there is something a little bit different, isn't there? The last time we spoke, Richard, we had not met in person before. We had not had the exchange of pheromones that we have now had. We have not been within a distance where we could really get a sense of the other individual. And Richard, I've been very close to you now in a physical proximity. And it has changed things. I'm not going to lie, Richard. It has changed things. I can't quite explain how, but there is something that's different. I'm not going to say better. I'm not going to say worse. I'm just going to say different.
I completely agree with you, and and in several ways I'm quite scared that you're now saying this in a recorded manner, so that everybody kind of notice it. But it is the weird thing about the internet when you meet people for the first time. And what I was saying is the beautiful thing about it, and I've said this before, was that we just went straight into throwing things at each other and flipping the bird and just generally being quite nasty. There wasn't any of this kind of tenuous kind of like two pumas kind of circling each other before they attacked. We kind of went straight at it. There was vitriol. You ended up having to sleep outside in somebody's car because of the pure nastiness that was emanating from you. At some point you made Matthew Jude cry, which wasn't nice. But it's good. I'm now quite happy at the fact that you are now several thousand miles away from me. And I can quite happily build myself up in some kind of taekwondo type style. So if you do come across to the UK again, I'll be ready for you, fluffy face.
Well, that's an intriguing notion. I wonder. I'm not enough of a expert in world geography. I'm an expert in many things, as you know, Richard, but I'm not necessarily an expert in world geography. So I wonder, am I technically closer to you now than I was before, being in South Florida as opposed to Central Indiana? I don't know. There would be a very easy way to find this out by getting onto Google map, and right behind you, the people that are listening can't get the context that I am. I'm looking at Richard right now, and so your sympathy is appreciated. But there is a world map behind Richard. Last time we spoke, there was not a world map. Now, I have to ask you this question, Richard, because there's a tremendous glare on that map. But am I correct that the center of that map, what you would think of as the center of the map, is that centered on Europe?
Yeah, no, it's centered actually on the UK, which is
on
no
the UK.
longer.
Okay, so what you're telling me, Richard, is that you are a Eurocentrist, that you feel like the UK is more important than any other place in the world, clearly, or else it wouldn't be the center of your map.
I'm just saying that the person that designed the map
that you chose to frame and hang in a position of prominence in your home.
I was advised that we needed to get something on the wall.
Who advised you this?
And that a
Richard?
map, the current Mrs. Simpson advised me we needed something on the wall, and she wasn't having any of that Japanese anime nonsense.
Right.
No matter how pretty the girls looked. On the wall there. So we got a traditional, lovely looking map, which quite rightly has America in the left and as small as it deserves to be. As you can see, it's a tiny, tiny island.
A speck in the ocean.
Not much bigger than Italy.
Yeah.
And ironically, it's also bright orange. Who knew?
I wish everyone that was listening to this could see what I'm seeing, which is Richard every 2 seconds turning towards this map as if you'd never seen. Every time you look at that map, it's like you're discovering some new thing. It's like, oh, there's a map here. 2 seconds later, oh, look at this map. You seem to be consistently surprised about this map that's over your left shoulder.
Look at the size of Greenland. The size of Greenland's huge. Greenland
is an impressive body of land, indeed.
I can see why you wanted to buy it. That's all I'll say.
So, Richard, why am I here? What are we doing here today?
I think it was because I was under the kind of the popular misconception that as a man who is being taken on for your talents in board game media,
sure,
that you would come on in an eloquent, loquacious manner and have almost like sharp, quick facts to throw at us in relation to what's happening in the board game industry. But what I do find, much to my non-surprise, is that you're expecting me somehow to provide the entertainment when you're the guest. I don't know what's going on. What's going on kind of here. One of the things I would like to find out, okay, is that your exposure to UK culture
yes,
was concentrated but brief.
It was concentrated but brief. Yes, that's a good way to put it, Richard.
I would like to know if there was any kind of being in civilization for the first time where we actually have 2 license plates on our cars. People are going, what is this in-jokes now? Listen to the episode of Sporadically Bored with Frank West, and that'll make kind of complete sense. But is there anything that you have culturally taken on from your visit to the UK that you are now bedazzling people in your country in terms of how far our civilization has gone in the areas in which you guys need to catch up on? I noticed that you have obviously stolen the vertical blinds from your time.
Right. I used to have horizontal blinds, and that was the first thing I did when I came back here, was I just replaced all of my horizontal blinds with vertical blinds. Sure.
Oh, do you know why you can do that?
Why?
Because it makes it easier to spy on people outside. Because people in the UK, they've got an ability to do it's called curtain twitching.
Curtain twitching. I like that.
The issue that you've got with having horizontal blinds is it's very obvious when you're staring at somebody, because the whole blind kind of goes down in a big V.
Yeah.
And people look at it and go, look, there's DiLisio staring at every...
Yeah, whereas with vertical blinds, they might have this sense that maybe the air conditioning is blowing it or something.
Exactly.
Right? Because that could happen in nature. Whereas the horizontal blinds, nothing in nature is going to cause it to, of its own volition, bend down in that way.
Yes. The only thing you've got to watch out for is that if you push it aside too far, whereas horizontal blinds, you can stand there naked all day,
right,
and nobody will know.
Right, that's true.
Vertical blinds, you've got to watch out. You're not peeping something else extra out the window when you're pushing the blinds aside.
Sure. So what you're telling me is that the UK is a culture of miscreants and perverts and voyeurs. Is that what I should take out of this? Or?
And that is what I'm trying to find out, if you manage to bring any of that back to the United States of America.
Well, it's first of all, I'm not going to spend too much time on this license plate thing, since that was not on this podcast. But I did find out today that I just happen to live in some rogue states, that the majority of the United States does have the 2 license plate system like the UK. But that's just an odd little quirk of my where I've lived. The trip to the UK, if I might be serious for a moment, was lovely, and meeting you was lovely, and I do concur that. And correct me if I'm wrong, and don't just agree with me for the sake of agreeing me. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I got the sense that you were maybe a little taken aback when we first met, because when you and I met, and it's not always this way, but when you and I met, I really felt like I already kind of had known you enough to get past that awkward thing, even though we'd never been physically in the same place together. I felt like we had interacted enough on a number of different levels that I did jump right into that. But you seemed a little not put off, but you seemed like you were a little taken aback, like you're like, oh, okay, we don't have to do the little dance of introductions type of a thing.
I kind of worry about coming across like a bit of an idiot, because I think that's the case of the thing, and I'm kind of worried that I am, generally because of my career, because I have always been involved in kind of sales, training, something like that. So very much I am the person that has to kind of go and put myself forward, and at kind of networking events and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm generally the person that sticks their hand up and asks the questions, or kind of gets involved in interacts and stuff like that as well. And sometimes I'm conscious that I've got to sometimes kind of think, well, I maybe got to step back a little bit and maybe not kind of jump in there. And because of that's how I am, I maybe don't want to jump into somewhere and make somebody feel uncomfortable, because I'm also aware that just because some people and how they act online, there's a certain area of there's a certain area of comfort to that.
Right.
Is that we can have a chat, but it's under my control.
Sure.
If I don't want to speak to you for a while under DMs, I don't have to. If I don't want to speak to you through instant messaging, I don't have to. If we're not having kind of like a bit of back and forward banter on Twitter, then that's kind of fine. But in face to face, I do know that some people who come across as some way in social media will potentially be slightly different when it comes to person. So I generally have kind of known that I can, on occasion, be a little bit of a dominating personality. And so sometimes I like to rein it in back to say, is this okay?
Yeah.
And then if it's okay, it's almost like a communication consent thing.
Right. Oh, that's an interesting way to put it. A communication consent. Yeah. It was interesting to me because I don't always feel comfortable in a similar situation where somebody that I even have interacted with online a little bit, and then I meet them the first time. Sometimes there is that awkwardness. I don't particularly know why. Other than the fact that we were both fully nude, I don't know why it was it was okay and I didn't feel uncomfortable. But the trip to the UK was wonderful. I don't feel like I was there long enough. And I don't feel like I saw the full breadth of the lovely nation and culture to feel like I've brought anything back except for various diseases and bugs. But it was a lot of fun. I cannot wait to go back, and I do want to see more of the country and interact with more of the locals, so to speak. I guess what was interesting was that there are certainly parallels between our cultures. We have a lot of things in common. I guess it was small things. It was just little small things that kind of threw me off because I have a feeling like if I was in a country where the culture was so far different, you're almost like, okay, I'm a stranger in a strange land, and so you're expected to be kind of disoriented a little bit. But in the UK, it's similar enough that I felt comfortable because the people were generally speaking a language I understood, and the signs were things I could read, that I didn't have the sense of disorientation. But then but at the same time, there were things that were completely foreign. So it was an interesting experience, Richard. I will say that, an interesting experience. I very much enjoyed it, and I'm very much looking forward to going back. No, I didn't go to Scotland, though. I would have loved to have gone to Scotland.
Yeah, you see, this is the thing about the UK is like you can fit the UK into like half of California or whatever because it's only like 600 or 700 miles long.
Right.
But there's such a difference in the kind of the culture, so you only need to travel like 50 miles to get kind of a completely different accent, a completely different way of kind of doing stuff. So it was just a case of it's kind of getting used to that. And speaking of, I guess, getting used to stuff, you've moved area.
I have.
So is it is it vastly different moving into a new state? Is it kind of like are you getting a little bit of a culture shock because you've not only changed careers, you've kind of and you could say you've been serving an apprenticeship for some time to move into working to the Dice Tower, but I mean it's a big uproot for you.
Yes,
it's an uproot for your for your partner. Has there been things that you've had to kind of get used to or been different, kind of moving into a completely different new state?
The short answer is yes. There's things that have taken some getting used to, but just a little background is that I've lived in a lot of different states. I was born and raised in California, and I lived in different parts of California, but I've also lived in Connecticut, and I lived in New York, and I lived in Nevada, and I lived in Indiana, and now I've lived in Florida. And those are vastly different regions of the country. California and New York are on opposite coasts, and Florida is on the extreme southern end of the United States, and Indiana's in the Midwest, the heartland, so to speak. And so I feel like I've gotten a pretty good sense for a lot of the different areas of the country. Now, I will tell you, it's interesting. When I moved here to South Florida, which is a state which in and of itself has a lot of different cultures, from what I understand. I'm certainly no expert in Florida, but the northern parts of Florida and the Panhandle is a very different cultural experience than here in South Florida. What I've been saying is that I feel somewhat a sense of familiarity here in Southern Florida because it reminds me of where I grew up in Southern California. The climate was relatively similar, and the culture was relatively similar. There was a similar kind of makeup of groups of people. Now, it's interesting because I said that in my new job, which you've alluded to at the Dice Tower. I said that in a Q&A. Someone asked me a similar question, and I gave a response similar to what I just gave to you. And someone came on the comments and informed me that my own experience was incorrect. And that was new to me. I'd never been told that. So I was a little taken aback by that. They're like, no, the culture is not the same, and the the climate's not the same. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess my experience growing up is invalid. But anyway, so far for me, there have been aspects that have felt familiar, no matter what someone on YouTube wants to say, and there have been aspects that are different. It is. a time of year where I don't feel like I'm getting the extreme temperatures that I'm being told to get ready for. Right now it's very lovely and it's sunny and temperate. I know it's going to get very hot. I do like being close to the water again, Richard. I grew up close-ish to the water in Southern California. And then being in the Midwest for so long was really difficult because I was not near an ocean. And being so close to the ocean is something that I really, I've come to find over the years that's important to me. So I've enjoyed that.
Do you get to go around in the kind of the hover boats like Gentle Ben did?
Gentle Ben. Wow, that's a nice reference there. I wouldn't have thought you'd go Gentle Ben with that. I mean, I thought Miami Vice or... No. I love Gentle Ben. Gentle Ben used to be shown back-to-back with Flipper. You want to talk about an hour of power. You had Flipper and Gentle Ben back-to-back. That's a good hour of television right there. I haven't been on an airboat yet.
I mean, I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah?
Quite saddened by the fact that you haven't been on that. Have you eaten anything suspicious? Like, have you had, like, gator? Or, are you cooking up is there a pot boiling on the stove where you've got some poor critter kind of, skinned and diced away? Have you done? Yeah, this is where we're going, Mike.
Yeah. No, I understand. I appreciate it.
You've earned it.
Of course. I have not had gator.
Right.
You can get it around here. It is readily available. Readily available. I have not had it.
Wow.
Now, what I have had, and it's not odd at all, but it's going to put 20 pounds on me if I'm not careful, is they've got amazing Cuban food down here.
Really?
There's a very large Cuban community, and the Cuban food that I've been eating way too much is incredible, and specifically the Cuban bakeries around here I've spent far too much time in because they've got these lovely pastries and flans and oh my God, it's just so good. And so I have to be careful.
You're taking up half the screen. I mean, you are taking up half the screen.
I know.
Now you're taking out it.
I've bloated.
Say.
Yes.
I'm just going to check out where Cuba is on the map. Let's just go back to
It's 90 miles south of the southern tip of Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's a small island. They're just north of Jamaica. But yeah, it's that's been lovely. But no, I haven't really eaten a lot of weird foods. No, sorry. I'm not a very adventurous eater.
Richard. I'm expecting all these things like travel and excitement and you to say, actually, do you know what? I've got myself a pet bear. And you're even hanging about with Clint Howard. Because let's face it, if you get to Clint Howard, you get to Ron.
Yeah, that's true.
You get to Ron Howard, you can get to Star Wars.
That is true.
I'm just saying.
That's 2 degrees of separation there. 2 degrees. I've seen a gator since I've been here, Richard. I haven't eaten one, but I've seen one. I went to the Everglades.
Is that weird? Wow.
Is it weird? No, it was great, actually. It was lovely. My wife and I went to the Everglades State Park and saw a number of gators, and they were, it was great because they were in their natural habitat and doing their thing, and they're very impressive animals, Richard, because, they've been around, they were basically, dinosaur age, these animals that are still roaming the earth, and it's impressive to see animals of that, I don't know, what permanence maybe? You get the impression that they've been here, so long and they'll be here. They're not going anywhere. You know what I mean?
They kind of look at you like, yeah, I've seen you kind of before when you were in trees.
Right.
You ain't nothing new. You've just got bigger tools that you wave around in your hands.
That's it.
You silly little primates, and and you're still soft. I always remember the picture, the Gary Larson single page of 2 gators sitting at the side of a shore, and there's a pile of clothes lying there. They're going, that was amazing. No fur, no feathers, no horns.
Was that a Far Side?
Just talking about the human race being distinctly edible and distinctly lovely.
Yes.
you start, as I say, we've alluded to. I actually came out and said it, but is it strange to be kind of, in some ways, for a lot of people would say, kind of living the dream and actually working in the board game industry, and how much of that is kind of living the dream, and how much of that is, this is an actual job, and I'm having to bust my ass to kind of keep up and keep things going and prove, because you still in your kind of your proving ground thing where you're kind of still kind of new boy, and you're making sure that kind of everything is kind of, I'm dotting the T's and I'm crossing the I's.
Right. Or vice versa. Yeah. That everything you said there resonates with me quite a bit. Yes, I'm the new person. I'm the low man on the totem pole, rightly so. There's a tremendous learning curve. But to answer the first part of your question, it is still weird for me. It is still something that I'm adjusting to. I'm still processing that I'm actually doing this for a living now. And conversely, it is a tremendous amount of work. That I really do think that there's a sense, and I don't say this with any kind of malice at all. I think it really is just a sense of maybe this is what you'd like the job to be. I get the sense that a lot of people think that you play games most of the time, that you have a game session every day or even weekly, and then generally that's just not the case. Games are part of the job. Playing games are part of the job, but those are generally done outside of the working hours. There's so much to do during the 40 or so hours a week, and it generally it's more than that. That you just don't have time. So you have to play, at game nights, or you have to play at home and get those gaming experiences in when you can. It is a remarkable amount of work. There's a pretty small team at the Dice Tower. And all of them, even the ones, not even, including the ones that are not generally in front of the camera very much, are involved in almost every aspect of the production of what goes into the Dice Tower. Tom obviously is responsible for certain things that only he is responsible for, administrative things and much more higher level things that are way, way, way beyond my pay grade. But everyone in the office, generally speaking, has their toes in all the different pools that are involved in kind of keeping the channel going and running as smoothly as we can possibly do it. And so when I got here, the biggest shock to me was, and I may have mentioned this before, so I hope I'm not retreading myself too much, but I went from a job, a high school teacher, where I felt a certain level of mastery. And I don't say that with arrogance. I say that as somebody who's been doing the same thing for 20 years. I felt a certain level of mastery in it. I felt like there was not going to be a whole lot that was going to surprise me, right? I was able to do certain things on autopilot because I'd done them for so long. I had set up a system that worked for me. I had developed a curriculum, yada, yada, yada. When I got here, everything was new. Everything was new. I was using software I had never even opened before. I was learning every aspect of what needed to be done for my job, and also trying to pick up what other people were doing so that I can be as versatile and as valuable of an employee as I can, so that if I need to hop on to the live stream machine, or I need to pick up a review to do because this week for whatever the reason is, I want to be able to be as valuable as I can. And so I've been putting a lot of pressure on myself and trying to turn this old man's body into a younger version of himself and get the energy to dive in, because there's a lot to know in a relatively short period of time. I have to keep reminding myself I've only been down here for a few months, and everyone with the Dice Tower has been remarkably supportive, remarkably kind to me, not only in the office, but, viewers that have made really nice comments to me, both in person and online. And I need that fuel because I'm being very self-critical. I want to know everything right away, and I just can't. So it's an interesting situation. It really is an interesting situation.
I think there'll be a kind of a thing of being more self-critical because you have been creating content, because you have been doing podcasts, because you have been a face out there, because you've already been in many ways part of the kind of the dice tower, and doing your own thing. Sure. And I think it's almost like expected as well. How different can it be? Kind of recording a video, and it's like, well, we use this setup and that's the setup that we use, and I think it's easier to be like, oh shit, I actually know absolutely nothing at all with what I'm doing,
right? And
especially when you're kind of like, have you been fighting things like imposter syndrome as well? I mean, have you said, well, actually I deserve to be here, do you have to kind of like do the kind of the pep mic, you deserve to be here, just shut that down and let's just get on with it kind of thing?
Yeah, very much so. I think that's natural. I think that's normal. But yeah, I have had a number of crises, plural, of confidence since I've begun this, because everyone, I think, compares themselves to other people. It's just I think that's just the nature of anything, not just creative content. But I think that in creative content, it maybe lends itself even more to that, because so much, I think, of what we do, whatever it might be, you, me, Tom, Ben Maddox, Dan Hughes, name the content creator out there. So much of what we do is based upon our personality, I think. And when people connect with you, they connect with what you do. A lot of it is going to be because they're connecting with you as an individual. Now, some people might be really interested because something is really flashy and has great technical skill and all that. And of course, that's important. But I do think that the lasting content creators have something about them that is appealing for whatever reason it might be. And so there's always this sense of, okay, well, people, they're tired of me. They're sick of it. They think it's a shtick. They don't, you know what I mean? They think it's disingenuous or whatever the case may be. And so what I kept telling myself is not to listen to the good stuff too much and not to listen to the negative stuff too much, to try to be authentic. That to me is the most important thing, because then if I succeed or if I fail, I feel like it's going to be on the basis of who I am, and that's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay in both ends. If I'm successful and people like what I'm doing and they connect with me and I'm being authentic, then I feel like I can accept that and try to accept that in an appreciative way. But if people don't like what I'm doing and I'm being authentic, then I have to be okay with that too. It might just mean that maybe what I'm doing is not connecting with enough people, or maybe you know what I'm getting at. I don't know what I'm getting at, Richard. I'm rambling, but
no. I mean, I think people. It's difficult. It's the level of acceptance, and it's difficult to get. It's difficult for sometimes you in yourself to accept that people like tuning in to you because of who you are and that you are familiar to them. In that, whether they're having it's first thing on a Monday morning, or it's a Wednesday afternoon, or it's a Sunday afternoon when they're cutting the grass or whatever, or they're just sitting out and they've got 10 minutes, is that they will pick to listen, to watch, to read you because there's a certain amount of familiarity. And a lot of people nowadays, they need that. They don't want one thing to... I mean, if, it's like Tom Vassell being as established as he did, if he changed his style to how he approached his reviews, regardless if it's still Tom Vassell, there are going to be people that will have an issue with that. And at the same time, people like, it's like when, Dan Hughes bringing back Dan and Cora. And all I saw in that video was people going, this is brilliant. This is what I was, this is the, finally some good content kind of thing. And it's because people remember what life was like with Dan and Cora before, and they're kind of like, well, this is something I know I enjoy. This is some familiarity. This isn't something I can settle down to and I'll have a good time. So there's a kind of that kind of level of acceptance as well, which is really, really kind of difficult. In terms of the, in terms of it actually becoming a job.
Yeah.
Are you making sure you're taking time away from things to either do different things altogether, or to make sure that you're playing games to enjoy games and not playing games because I know we're going to be discussing this in a Q&A, or I know we're going to do some board game breakfast stuff, that you're taking the time to say, actually, I'm going to play Wingspan again tonight because I really like it, kind of thing. Are you making sure that you're kind of doing that as well?
A little bit, probably not as much as I need to, because I kind of intuitively recognize that that's important too, because I do feel like, I think we've all heard the stories of people that go into this as a vocation, and they start to lose their passion for it because now it's their job. I don't know that I'm in danger of that, thankfully, but what has been the issue is just the time. I do have less free time now than I did before. And a lot of that time after I would get off work as a teacher would be time that I would just play games. And I don't have that much time as I used to. But I am... It's really weird. There's two different things going on here, Richard, and I'm going to do my best to explain it, and I will fail miserably.
I'm just here to see you fail. I mean, that's the main thing.
We all are, aren't we? Isn't that what this is all about?
Yes.
There are certain times where I am being very, very mindful to play old favorites just because I want to play those games, and I know that they're not going to inform any content that I create at all. And so I will continue to do that because it's important to keep that love of the hobby. And when I was doing the top 100 videos, in my case, the top 40, that reinforced it because there were so many of those games that were older games that I was at least as excited about those as I was about the new ones. And that just reinforced to me that, keep loving these games. But before this was my job, I almost never approached a game from a strictly critical eye. Because most of what I was doing were playthroughs. All right. I did some reviews, but not a lot. Mostly what I did was playthroughs. And what I'm doing now is if I am playing a game that I know is at least potentially going to be something that is going to be content for the Dice Tower, I kind of feel like it's my responsibility to try to view it through the lens of not only a gamer, am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying the experience? What are the experience of the other people at the table? But I am looking at it through a slightly different lens. It's a little bit schizophrenic feeling, and I hope that I'm not cheapening that word by using it this way. But it has been an adjustment for me to be like, okay, here's the biggest thing, Richard. And I'm using your name a lot because that creates a sense of familiarity and intimacy. Are you feeling this? He's flipping me off. The biggest thing is that I'm like, okay, I'm cognizant of the fact now that if I recommend something, if I say I really like something, that now the audience that is potentially seeing me make that recommendation is so much larger than it used to be that I feel more of a personal responsibility to look, am I comfortable with telling people to spend their money on this? You know what I mean? I have to take that into consideration now. It's like, okay,
bigger level of
right. I really liked this game. I'll give you a perfect example. Cthulhu, Death May Die.
Yes.
I've really liked this game. It has some very significant flaws, but I like it. I've been playing the heck out of it. I don't know that I could just full scale recommend that because of the price point for it. It's an expensive game, and does it really provide the value? I don't know. It does for me personally, but I don't know that I would feel comfortable putting that out there as a blanket level. You should get this game. You know what I mean? I would have to give a lot of caveats to that, and I wouldn't have before. In the past, I would have just been like, "Oh my gosh, I'm loving this game. Yeah, I know it's not the the greatest game in the world, but it's great. It's great." You know what I mean? And I would just kind of lean into the parts that I like. Whereas now, I feel like I have to be very cognizant of a lot more people. Not that I'm more important than I was before, because clearly I'm not. But my platform is much larger than it was before, and I can't stick my head in the sand and pretend it isn't. You know, the people that were watching solo mode games, the 3,000 or so people that were subscribed, maybe a third of them might be watching. That's very different than the Dice Tower. If I'm on there, I feel this sense of, hey, this is a much bigger audience, and I really want to make sure that I'm trying to do my job and do my job well.
Do you think that people are going to be, they're going to take time to adjust to kind of your tastes and what you're interested in and stuff like that as well? Because you've got the kind of thing that, there'll be people that haven't seen anything of your previous work, and they'll be going in to say, well, what's the cut of his jib? What's the kind of stuff that he likes? And I think that certain people latch on to certain reviewers because they align with their thoughts kind of 9 times out of 10. Right, certain people love Shut Up and Sit Down because 9 times out of 10 they'll go, oh yeah, well it's great, but except for this bit here, which is kind of rubbish, and they go, yep, I know exactly where you're coming from. Or if I'm listening to like a review with Ben Maddox, Oliver Kinner, Elizabeth Liz Davidson as well, but yeah, I mean, I'll resonate with, if they're talking about certain games, there'll be certain things I'll go, yeah, I know I'm going to enjoy this because of what you kind of say. Right. Do you think you've got to take into account that, some people are still discovering what Mike likes kind of thing, and if they can align themselves with what Mike likes, so that going down the line, when you're saying, I get the whole price thing. I mean, it's like it's a difference between suggesting that and going, I reviewed Blitzkrieg from PSC recently, and it's got a lowish value, and it's good fun. It's 20 minutes, and I had a blast with it. I wouldn't have an issue recommending people kind of play it or check it out, because I know they're not going to be shelling out $70, $80.
Right.
Well, I guess on the other side of it, then that when you see the Kickstarter preview videos and you see people going, oh yeah, this looks amazing, and it's like got a $200 price tag, I'm kind of like going, where's your responsibility then? But that's a different kind of thing altogether. Do you have to drive far to get to your new job then?
Do I have to drive to it?
Do you have to? Yeah, do you have to drive far? I know you drive, because you Americans drive everywhere. Because let's look at the map.
There's really no other option unless I want to walk. No, I drive, but it's not far. I mean, it's about 15, 20 minutes to work. I live.
That's nothing in America.
No, it's nothing. I mean, you might as well be next door. We all, with the exception of Kenny, who lives in Miami and probably, I would say probably takes about 40 minutes. The rest of us are within 15 to 20 minutes if there's traffic from the studio. So it's not a long drive at all. I'm going to cycle back, if you don't mind, because you asked a question about are people getting used to what my tastes are. And I think the answer is yes. And the interesting thing is, I think it's not just people watching the Dice Tower; it's also the Dice Tower. If you watch any of those videos that we all four of us did, me, Tom, Z, and Roy, Tom had no idea what was going to be on my list. He had a much better idea on Roy's list. He had a very good idea on what was on Z's list. I was a complete wild card. He had no idea. And to be honest with you, that was fun. It was fun to be constantly surprising him, because he was like, really? He had no idea. Because I do think, I think everyone thinks that they've got this kind of unique, taste. But I even have a hard time nailing down what my tastes are when it comes to games. I mean, everyone always thinks that all I play are solo games, and that's fine. I can play into that joke a little bit, although it's very much not true. But I don't really see a huge. here's what I do see. The things that I know I like, there are certain mechanics that I tend to gravitate towards more. I don't like party games very much, so you don't see a lot of those in my collection or on my lists. And I like pretty games. I've said I am a shallow, and I say that kind of jokingly. I just want my games to look good, and I unabashedly want them to look good. So that's something I think is consistent, is that a lot of the games I really like have a nice aesthetic to them. But other than that, I don't know. I like some Ameritrash games. I like some Euro games. I like some abstracts even. I like all kinds of games, but I don't even know what my tastes are, other than I know what I like.
I don't know what you can do about putting things into a top 50. I mean, I listened to kind of like Board Game Barrage doing like their 1s to 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And their list was like completely different from each other. And I think you said on a recent episode of Sporadically Bored, which is like, if I gave you a top 10 today, if I gave you a top 10 next week, there's a chance that top 10 would vary, because it would vary on who I was playing in and the kind of the mood. I'm not sure if we can treat board games the way that we have been traditionally treating, kind of, say, video games. I think there's a kind of a chart, and if I gave you a list of like, I'd find it difficult to do a top 10. I'd find it easy to do a list of here's 10 games I would play.
Right.
Moreover, more than anything else probably, but not necessarily in any kind of order. I mean, It depends. Like you said, it depends on the kind of the mood that I'm kind of in. I mean, as I say, it depends what kind of catches fire, what kind of catches my eye. I mean, it could be Ashes, The Rise of the Phoenix Burn one day. It could be Catacombs the next day. It could be Dinosaur Island one day. It could be Dinogenics the next. It could be, it depends on kind of where I am. And I'm worried about us chasing kind of lists to find the ultimate game, when the ultimate game, I don't think it exists. It was interesting hearing you guys talking about, was it Seventh Continent?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Seventh Continent is like was it the Barnum of the board game world? Because I have never ever seen so much hype for a board game, followed by so many people want to get rid of their copy of this game. I've never, and I don't know if it's like comes down to like it was Frank that was talking about it. He streamed it for like 7.5 hours, went into a cave, got killed in the cave, and then realised he had to start the whole thing again. I'm just like going.
And the only thing he learned was don't go in that cave. Yeah.
Don't go in the cave, exactly. Don't go back into it again. But I've seen that. I mean, I don't know if it's like smoking, kind of like there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, especially with these big hype machines. And it's personally kind of putting me off Kickstarter, because I've got a few Kickstarters through now recently, which I've kind of, it's kind of weird. I hesitate writing about them because at the time they were like the shit.
Right.
Everybody was saying they were the best thing ever. And now, a year down the line where it's actually sitting in my lap and I'm learning it, I'm going, this is kind of okay, but it's not kind of floating my boat. I don't know where I'm going with this.
It's okay. Richard, we're on a stream of consciousness. Close your eyes with me, Richard. Let's lay back and float in this stream. We're in a stream of consciousness, and let's just go where it takes us.
We're just,
I didn't hear. Here's the thing.
Yeah, I was in my stream of consciousness.
I feel like we are aligned in this, in the sense that I don't feel bad about the constant desire for top 10 lists, because if you just look at numbers, there's got to be something to them, Richard, because they are always the most popular videos, articles, blog posts, podcasts, you name it. They're always going to be there in the upper echelon. So there's something to it. I think we as human beings have an innate desire to sort things, categorize things, to rank things. I think that's fine. But I think what is important is that we understand that it really is all in fun. That's certainly how I approached my list. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't put thought into it, because I did. I really did try to be thoughtful and mindful. But that being said, that list could be different in a week. It could be different in 2 weeks. Yeah. And I don't feel bad about that. That's okay. I do feel confident that at the time that I'm making the list, those are games that I think are very, very high. Is there a huge difference between 10 and 11? No. Is there a huge difference between 10 and 2? Probably not, honestly. It's just, you have to kind of make some delineation. I just think that they're fun. I think that it leads sometimes to good discussion. I think it leads to some playful banter, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that it's ridiculous to say that one game is objectively the best game. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's probably not even the best game for you. It might just be the game that you most are interested in playing right now, or that triggers some type of endorphin rush based on some play experiences you had with it. Games are items that you interact with. They help create experiences. And so oftentimes I think what you're rating is not as much the mechanics but you're rating how did this game make me feel? What type of experience did it provide at that time that I played it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of why I write reviews the way I write reviews. It's all about kind of experiences and the appreciation for the game as well. Now, the last time I did a show, an episode with Mark Cook, speaking of appreciation, there is a link. We had a Dan Hughes appreciation minute.
Wow. A full minute?
Now, well, it was about 38 seconds, but you can
round up.
We can stretch it to a minute.
Sure.
But you've been podcasting with Dan for some time, and he contacted me today, and he says actually, he first of all said, if you contact me again, Richard, I'm going to block you. But he also said that he really enjoyed the Dan Hughes appreciation minute on the Mark Cook episode. So I was one. I wasn't going to just throw this on anybody, but seeing as you know him, is there any kind of words you would like to say about Dan Hughes for the next 30 seconds, or just to make him happy?
This is tricky, Richard, because I feel like I can go two ways with this. I can try to be entertaining and humorous, but why start? But
you've been trying that for 55 minutes.
I haven't done it yet, so.
I was gonna say.
So I'll be serious. Why not do that?
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like every so often, if you're lucky, you get to meet somebody that you connect with very quickly. And to me, I feel like that was Dan. I don't know what it is. From the very first time that we were talking on even before This Game Is Broken, but mainly throughout that and then past This Game Is Broken, I've just felt a connection. I don't know, just a connection with Dan. And so one of the favorite things that I do is record Sporadically Bored with him. And yeah, I'm plugging it, but that's not the point behind it.
No.
And the reason why is that I just enjoy talking to him. There's something about just the two of us sitting down, and sometimes a third person if you want to get Matthew in there too. He's all right. But there's just something about the two of us with really nothing that we're going to talk about, talking for an hour and a half. You can't always do that, right? And it doesn't always work, and it's not always entertaining. No. But it is unique. And the conversations that I have with Dan, the banter that we have, the back and forth that we have is very, very organic, very natural. And I really do treasure that and appreciate it, because you don't always get that. You know what I mean? You don't always get the opportunity to talk to somebody that you click with in that way.
Oh, yeah.
And we're from very different backgrounds. We're from very different cultures, well, not very different, relatively different. We have different life experiences, but for one reason or another, we just enjoy talking to each other. And so there's my Dan Hughes appreciation. What is it? Maybe 3 minutes I went in?
That's 3 minutes too much.
Indeed.
To be perfectly honest.
I guarantee you, if he had been in my place and you had asked him to do this about me, I shudder to think. Shudder.
I would just, do you know what I mean? It'd just be like saying, well, we took him to Boots and he started shoplifting. And then we had to explain to the police that he had diplomatic immunity.
Right.
That kind of, I think, but no. It's just a thing. I like to spread a positive vibe about somebody who organised Gearstones and brought a lot of people together.
He did.
You have been podcasting with him for a while, and I thought, let's give somebody the chance to just sit there for 3.5 minutes and completely lie for as long as they could without. I was really appreciated the fact you're stifling, you're giggling while you were actually singing that, but it was very, very nice indeed. Are you getting to go out to more cons then now? I mean, I'm not saying you're going to be a prisoner, but are you going to be able to go to more kind of conferences then? Have you now got a kind of, as part of the job, are you going to go at Dice Tower East, left, right, up, strawberry, peppermint, negative and positive?
Sure, absolutely. Dice Tower in space. That's going to be the next one we're doing.
Entertaining the Space Force.
Hey, I'm a
going
lieutenant.
To be playing some dice with everybody. I'm going to be rolling my dice. They're going to be very good dice. The best dice.
They're huge dice. Huge dice.
Wow.
Anyway. Yes, the answer is yes, and that is good. A tremendous benefit to the job, of which there are many. So definitely going to Dice Tower West in 2 weeks, going to Dice Tower East, and going to the Dice Tower Retreat, which I think is in September, going to Gen Con, going to PAX U. Just came back from the Dice Tower Cruise. So that right there is 6, I believe, if I counted correctly, this year. There's
all in one hand.
All on one hand. That's what you get for standing too close to the microwave. There's, maybe a possibility I could even get myself to UK Gaming Expo, or I don't know. That's all Tom's decision to make. I don't know what type of crew he's looking to take to UK Games Expo and to Essen, but I would love to go if he needs the help. So the 6 that I mentioned are for sure, and then there are other ones that may happen. So even though they're working conventions, it's still fantastic. I love being a part of the just the experience of it. And I've never been to I had never been to PAX U before last year, so I was able to go to that for the first time. That was great. I had never been on a cruise period before, so doing that was fantastic. When I go to West, it'll be my first time there, and Retreat will be my first time there. So,
are you now up to your eyes more than ever in games? Then, I mean, breaking the popular myth. Are you kind of? Is there a big pile in the middle, and then you chuck your car keys into the bowl, and then everybody takes car keys, and then they also take a game under their arm.
Wow!
So you get a different car and a different game every day.
Boy, there's been a lot of 70s references here between Gentle Ben and swingers parties. I don't know. This is amazing. I feel like you're breaking out all the big guns here, Richard. The short answer is I could be if I chose to be. I got rid of a lot of games before I moved down here. I need to get rid of more. I do have access to more games if I want them. I have been very, very selective about taking on more games. The bottom line is that, and I don't say this in a flippant or, I don't just say this as look at me. But generally I have access to the Dice Tower library. And so if there's a game that I want to play, there's very few games I want to play that I can't play. And that's a ridiculous thing to be able to, I understand, trust me, I get what a remarkable thing it is for that to be the case. But I feel like I'm going to take advantage of that in the sense that I'm going to probably keep my collection more razor honed than it's ever been before, because I don't feel like I need to buy every game that I want to try, because I have access to it that I can play. And if there's something that's truly special that fills a niche that I feel like my collection could use, then I'll go ahead and buy one. But games cycle through the Dice Tower. That's any big review place. That's going to be the case. And many of them go right to the library where they should. But I've been really, really selective about it. I have not gone hog wild and dove in like Scrooge McDuck, and you know what I mean?
Well, absolutely, because I'm Scottish and I've got a big safe full of like coins, so I know exactly what you mean.
Do you know it's incredibly difficult? Off the gold. Yeah.
Like
you knew I was going to do it, right? You knew we couldn't get through the whole. You knew we couldn't get through the whole episode without me doing a horribly bad Scottish accent.
A horribly racist.
They're magically delicious.
Racist accent. You're not going to take my Lucky Charms, but that's a mixture of Irish and Scottish, so it's never ever going to work.
No, it's not.
Is there games at the moment you want to get your hands on though? I mean, saying you've got access.
Correct. Yes, I would love to get a copy of the new Sashi and Sashi game, Remember Our Trip. I played that with Z, and that went directly into the Dice Tower library. That was a lot of fun. I really like those Sashi games a lot, but it's very expensive to get a hold of here. I would love to get a... I was about to say I'd like to get a copy of Tainted Grail, but I don't think so. I think I'd rather play it. That's a big, huge box. I don't know how often. I'd like to try Tainted Grail, which I can. There's a copy of it. There's a copy of it in the library. The one game I did want to get a copy of that I did just buy and it hasn't shown up yet, is Atlantis Rising. Z has been going on, and Tom both have been going on about that so much that I finally broke down and got a copy of that. Just hasn't shown up yet.
Well, I got, what did I get? Do you know what? I had the delight of getting hold of My Little Scythe.
Ah, yes.
And I played that. And I played that with my son and was charmed.
Yeah.
Beyond belief.
It's pretty terrific, yeah.
It's pretty, it's better than Scythe.
Oh, come on.
I didn't say that.
It's definitely not better than Scythe. But is it better for your son than Scythe? Absolutely. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to show, right, just for you.
Oh.
Right. Do you know what the microphone boxes are stacked on?
No.
Look, I'm lifting up just to show everybody, and I'm going to show Mike what the microphone boxes are stacked on.
Oh, the Wind Gambit. The Wind Gambit expansion for Scythe, yes.
And also Invaders from Afar.
Invaders from Afar
is also that, because you might as well use them for something, because they're not any use for anything else. To be perfectly honest, that's not. I'm just pressing your buttons. That's all.
That's okay.
I got that. I got that, which is good. And I had Isle of Cats from Frank West as well, which seems to be. I played that in family mode, and that's good fun as well. You're reaching over for something, is that? Ah, right. You have been playing the solo mode. I have no doubt. This is great podcasting, by the way. We're actually showing each other boxes on cameras, and you guys have absolutely nothing going on, because at the end of the day, we have forgotten that we're recording a podcast for other people to listen, which is just one of these things that unfortunately happens when two friends happen to have a chat. I guess my last question.
Yes.
Because I'm conscious of the time. You got no doubt got. Yeah, I'm a really busy guy. Why are you keeping me for an hour? In terms of you've got your job, which is board gaming.
Mm-hmm.
What hobby would you consider taking up if you weren't gonna do the board gaming as a hobby? Is there another hobby you've got your eye on? Knitting, macrame, golf. I mean, that's a good sweater top you've got on. I mean, that would probably suit you for 18 holes.
Right. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this sweater from multicolored alpacas. This is crochet, actually. I crocheted this swea But that's just a side. That's just a side thing. I just do that in my spare time. You know, it's funny you ask this. I do think that there would be, if I had more time and I was still living where I'm living now, and that's kind of what informs this answer. Is I would like to take the time to be a competent surfer. Growing up in Southern California, I dabbled a little bit, and I was able to get up on the board and stay up for a little bit. But I never was in a position where I could afford to own my own board. Couldn't get to the beach often enough to make that a viable thing. Now, I'm in another area where you can very easily surf if you had the time and the money to do so. It's not terribly expensive, but you do need to be able to afford your board and your wetsuit and such. Which, theoretically I could do now, but right now it would be the time. Although I'm still toying, Richard. I'm toying with the idea of trying to get out and surfing a little bit and taking advantage of the lovely coastline that is here.
See, I always had pictured you as a kind of a Patrick Swayze type character, so that kind of fits in. But to me, you were always going to be kind of doing the bossa nova instead.
The bossa nova, really? You went with the bossa nova? That's the one?
The bossa.
You had so many options there. You went with the bossa nova. That's the girl from Ipanema. We could just keep doing this. Getting back to this whole thing of not realizing people are listening to us.
Until everybody goes home and goes, what is going on with this? I am going to talk about a couple of things. First of all, for people who have not checked out Sporadically Bored, pause this podcast, go and find Sporadically Bored in the Googles and go and subscribe to it. It's a tale of Mr. Dan Hughes and Mr. Mike DiLisio who get together and just have a general chat and everything and anything about kind of cars to gardening to kind of toilet issues, sure, to kind of like fast food, to going to family trips, to dealing with paying for anything at all. Occasionally they talk about board games. It's a fantastic kind of heartwarming, wonderful bubble of chat, and then they have guests on and there's a sack involved and there's some rubbish at the end and there's some rubbish at the beginning, sure, and sometimes there's rubbish in the middle, but it continues to be one of my favorites, that if I'm having kind of one of those days where I'm just like, if another sheep escapes from its pen, I'm going out with the little kind of No Country for Old Men gun. I'm serious. And I can just get in the car and put it on, and I know within a couple of minutes I'm either going, this is ridiculously funny, or I'm chortling away and having to stop the car because I'm getting to that age where I can possibly pee myself.
Sure.
And I just wanted to kind of again just remind people that you guys exist and you're out there and you're doing something different, and it's not just let's talk about board games for an hour or whatever. It's like just genuinely good fun and worthwhile kind of checking out. If people want to find you on the internet webs, where do we find you now, Mr. Dice Tower Man?
First of all, thank you for the kind words about the podcast. That really does mean a lot. They could find me doing occasionally, I'll do stuff on the Dice Tower. So if you just watch the Dice Tower YouTube channel, I'm doing some live videos and I'm going to be doing some other content, but you can find me there from time to time. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter at Mike DiLisio. If you do end up listening to the Sporadically Bored podcast and you enjoy that, I would recommend you join the Facebook group for Sporadically Bored, because it's a fantastic group of individuals who have lovely chats and lively discussion. So yeah, that's good enough. I'm on Instagram, I think, but I'm hardly ever on Instagram.
I don't want to see the photos. Don't look at.
No, it's better you don't. You don't. I might have a court order anyway.
There's a brilliant one of I've photoshopped his face onto Gentle Ben, which is doing the works, and I've actually sent it to Matthew Jude and said, "Look, Bigfoot exists." and he laughed a lot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards and you'll find us. And if you like what you've listened to tonight, go and tell somebody else, because that's how we spread. Unlike other things, you do not need a face mask to listen to us. I'm just going to say that. If you want to do other things, there's a couple of things you can do. Read our blog, look at our Facebook page, join us on Twitter, because, things are happening. But also jump onto your podcast catcher of choice, which is sometimes got the word pod in it and sometimes got the word cast in it, or sometimes has neither, like Player FM.
Yeah, what's that
Spotify.
about?
It's just ridiculous. No idea. Or the other thing you can do is you can go onto the Apple Podcasts and you can drop us a rating or a review. Don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average.
That sounds right.
And we're just a little bit average. And we've been being average for 4 years.
Wow.
Now.
Congratulations, Richard.
4. I always say if I did shoplifting, I would have been out in 2. But there you go. Thank you very, very much for coming on, Mike. It's an absolute pleasure.
You had to really search for that one.
As always, thank you. Reads off his hand.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the time. Milk, eggs, bread. Sorry, that's the wrong list.
Thank you for having me on, Richard. It's been a pleasure on my end as well. I was terribly unentertaining, but regardless of that, whether I was good or not, and I think that we can all agree I was very not good, it's important to me that I continue to be in the upper echelon of your downloaded episodes, because I'm fine being below Elizabeth Hargrave, right? That's clearly she designed one of the best games of the last 10 years. I'm fine with that.
Yes.
However, I will not accept being below Matthew Jude. That's outrageous.
Let's check this.
That can't happen. And so here's a second chance for people to get it right and to put me into that second spot like I so richly deserve. Because look, Matthew, come on now. Look, he's a fine young man, but he's clearly in the bronze position on the podium, right? I mean, that just suits his skin tone. It goes well with his plaid shirt. The silver against the plaid, it's really gauche. It does not go well. But the bronze against the plaid is a really good look. So let's shoot for that, shall we?
This is just for people to put this into context. This is the fact that currently on the downloaded episodes of all time, Mike DiLisio is in the top 10. And at the moment, it goes like this. We've got Isaac Childress. We've done a couple episodes.
Oh, this is ridiculous. Now this whole thing has been thrown off. No. I'm not even near the platform anymore. I'm not even in the arena anymore.
You are.
Okay.
You are. No, you are. You are. It goes Isaac Childress.
Okay.
Matthew Jude. Elizabeth Hargrave.
Wow.
Mike DiLisio.
I've been booted off the podium by Isaac.
You have been booted off the podium by Isaac.
Man,
you have.
Make one genre-defining game, and all of a sudden you're going to be up at the top of the list.
I would like to point out at the moment you are beating Callan Allen.
Oh, I'm beating Callan Allen. Okay.
Board Game Barry. You are.
So the Fandango tank is running roughshod over the red tank. That's good. I'll take that.
Yep.
Look, we need to rectify this. We need to right this wrong. I've got to be up on that podium. I've got to be on that podium. Yep. Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. But so it's a goodbye from Mike. Say goodbye, Mike. After that kind of plead.
Goodbye. Goodbye, all.
Goodbye. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll sixes. Make something awful. And it's Mike DiLisio for president.
Woo!
Until the next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.